Internal error. We're upset too. That is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Dude, I thought yesterday was Aaron's director's take, but I guess it wasn't. But today is Aaron's director's take. Building on feedback. As many of you know, 2 weeks ago, there was a series of changes made to the Overwatch team, as well as other teams across Blizzard. Of course, he's referring to the layoffs. Writing a public blog is difficult in wake of these events. I want to express gratitude for the absolutely amazing people who worked on our game that are no longer on our team. I want the community to feel informed, and I want to convey our excitement about what is to come in Season 9. To be honest, it's a lot to balance, but one of the things, I see what they did there. I said one of the things we've been most proud of is how we've kept lines of communication open between the team and the community. And we intend to continue that. That's true. That's true. It does kind of sort of blow though. Yes, they've been communicating more, which is great, but they still feel like in a lot of ways like old slow Blizzard about so many things. Like, it's great because they're actually making changes now and they're trying to swing the bat. They're trying to make aggressive changes, whether you agree with them, whether you disagree with them. Because, like, I mean, hey, let's be honest here. I think we all know there's things I definitely agree with, and there's things I absolutely don't fucking agree with, which is everyone's right to have an opinion. But the fact that they step up to the plate and they try stuff, and if it doesn't work, they're trying to start walking it back. That's very different from old Blizzard, which is good. But it just takes so long for stuff to happen. And how we were even talking about semi recently when I was watching the old Seagull video on how, like, when Overwatch was really good a couple years ago, when, you know, like, they started making a bit of a comeback during the, like, Overwatch 1, was when there was more consistent patches. It was patches every 2 weeks. And then they put that away to go back and work on Overwatch 2. I think they're probably going to figure it out in the next couple months that, like, they're just too slow on, like, on the small stuff, right? And they put a lot of effort into, like, those little, like, shitty events, like and I say shitty lovingly because I understand, like, they're fun for people, but for me, I just personally just don't like them. Like the Orisa, like, you know, where they're fighting in the fucking arena on the new Flashpoint map, right? I don't care about those emotes. I'd rather have, like, consistent little patches or balance updates to keep the game fresh, shake it up, make everybody viable. But you got to give them credit. Communication has been so much better in the last couple years, so they're right. In that spirit, yesterday we shared these exciting changes, which we covered. If you haven't seen that, that's over here. Probably go watch this. You are going to experience with competitive... changes you're going to be experienced with competitive starting in Season 9. I'd like to take a bit more insight into why we are making these changes. In our previous director's take, we talked about improving the game's core PvP experience. There are different ways that we are looking at improving the game, but one of the biggest is listening to your feedback, which is very good. Season 9 starts in less than a week. And the two biggest and best changes coming to this season, and a lot of it is driven by feedback from you, our players, along with our team's vision to make the game more fun and challenging for everyone. The first is the reworked competitive system, and there is a lot of improvements to rank transparency, new skill tiers, and new competitive rewards. We started talking publicly about this in September. We referenced this in a video that summarized many of the problems that existed with the current system. Some of these were updates to a player's rank were too infrequent. It was difficult to understand why a player ranked up or down and by how much. Some divisions like GM1 had players with too large a skill range in them. That's why a lot of people would say people were boosted in GM or freshman GMs. And people got really upset and they'd be like, oh, like, you're just gatekeeping, you're being like an elitist. It's like, no, like, this is true. Now that we can look back, like, you can there's actual proof, there's evidence that they were right. And golden weapons no longer golden weapons no longer appealing. Really quick, I want to throw this in really fast, because I saw a lot of people talking about it on Twitter. This yesterday was shared, and there was someone who, I don't know how people really got that confused. I guess red arrow mean bad, but so specifically this change right here of expected, you were favored and you won, and there's a red arrow, and it's like, what, you lose points for winning a game? No, genius. Like, it's gonna look different on a bar like this, but like what would happen is, let's say this bar says plus 20%, right? This is where you were going to win plus 20%, but because you were favored to win, you lost 3%, so you only went up plus 17, right? So the idea of, like, this shouldn't be red. It should be like yellow or something like that, just to give people you know, because red mean bad. Basically, was the whole point of it was, you know, if you win a game but you were supposed to win, you'd win less points. I wanted to just throw that in really quick because a lot of people seemed confused yesterday. Let's continue with why they're making these changes. Our top goal with this rework is to make the system easier to understand. The old system hid too much information from players and gave it to them too infrequently. This is why we're updating your rating after every match, as well as including additional information through modifiers and why your rating went up or down a certain amount. Including the division range of all the players on the versus screen is another way that we're trying to give you more information about a particular match. So this is all really good. They're absolutely spot on, but I already see a small problem with this system, and it's only going to be for top level players. Is again, there's no numbers tied to it. It's like from what we just saw, like I showed you the thing before, it's all percentage based. So I wonder how it's going to look when you're top 500, say. Like, how far is it to get to the next rank in top 500? Maybe top 500 isn't the new thing anymore. Maybe it's the champion, right? Maybe people don't care about top 500. Maybe they care more about champion rank now. The problem is, though, like, let's say I'm ranked 300. How much is my difference between me and rank 299 or me and rank 200, right? Like, I don't think the system is going to be able to show that, at least from what I've seen. And that is definitely still very concerning because it doesn't, you know, for top level players who are the hyper competitive, it's going to be like, you know, like it might I don't know. We still have to see how it totally looks in game, but I have a bit of a concern about that. Regardless, though, this is amazing for the other 99.9% of players. So still really good. It's only going to be like a top level problem. So for most people, don't worry about it. With this system being easier to understand, players will have more incentive to get better and climb the ranks. That is the hope. We'd like players to have this incentive and the opportunity to earn new rewards. Competitive points will now be awarded more consistently as opposed to a large drop at the end of the season. I think I like the drop at the end of the season too, though. I thought that was kind of cool. And you can use them to unlock the new Jade weapons. There's a whole new incredibly exclusive tier above Grandmaster. Oh, so there's also a new There's also a whole new incredibly exclusive tier above Grandmaster called Champion. We've already started receiving feedback on the system, and we're planning a series of improvements giving more information about player skill in a match, allowing players from different divisions to play with each other more easily, and improvements to the top 500 experience. Yeah, so that's what I was just speaking on. I think they already know that that's going to be a problem, and they're trying to get ahead of the game and talk about it early. But like, basically, it seems like for what they're saying is like, we understand it's a work in progress. Some of these should start rolling out in the middle of season 9 and continue consistently after that. Hey, that's pretty good. Hopefully the thing I was just talking about is also in that. I'm going to be honest. I am very pleasantly surprised that what I was talking about at the beginning is I'm finding it halfway through here because I didn't expect that. Season 9 will also include a really large set of exciting changes to the overall gameplay of Overwatch, not just in the form of balance to heroes, but in some of the core mechanics of the game too. These changes are meant to address a few common topics we hear from the community, make shooting feel better and more consistent, reduce the effectiveness of both burst damage and in-combat healing, give damage heroes more agency in securing eliminations. We've made changes to address each one of these. We've added health to all heroes in the game in order to reduce the effect of burst damage, as well as reduce the number of heroes that can effectively one-shot each other. In addition, we've made most of the projectiles in the game slightly larger, which makes it easier to land shots on other players. This was partially done to compensate for the health increase to spread damage out and make it feel more consistent. Additionally, Overwatch is a fast-paced game. Our heroes are incredibly nimble and landing shots can feel inconsistent. He's not wrong with that, but I would argue that in a lot of ways, like, movement is a skill in the game. So I wonder how much of this will affect something like good movement, you know? We've also added a new passive to the damage roll that decreases healing done to players that they've damaged recently. The idea here is to give damaged players an increased ability to secure kills, as well as mitigate the abilities of support heroes to keep targets alive. This should also give damage heroes an advantage when facing off against supports. Interesting, it's against supports too, because the first thing I think of is enemy DPS who are pocketed, right? or I guess even supports that are pocketed by another support. There is something very interesting that Aaron notes in here, is that it seems that they will have to use their abilities to probably keep each other alive. So for example, Suzu, because there was a lot of times you didn't even have to Suzu somebody if you were pocketing them. You could just keep healing them through the damage and you'd be fine. And if they really hit some good shots, maybe then Suzu them. But this seems like it will, like, you will then have to use your Suzu to save your teammate, you know, which then I guess has an effect where you will be using it more often, which means that they can't just sit there and hold their Suzu for 6 minutes because they're waiting for a Junker Queen ult. And like you can't force the use because you're healing so good. Like it forces the player, the support player, to use the cooldown sooner, which gives you an opportunity to then capitalize it on a play. Which, you know, honestly, that theory makes a lot of sense. I think I didn't think about that. Aaron's kind of cooking there. This is an impressive set of changes that will shake up the meta in all sorts of thrilling ways. The team will be following the launch of Season 9 very closely and planning on doing quick updates based on what we see and the feedback that we get from all of you. Speaking on feedback, there are a few other systems that players have been talking about recently that we'll respond to in a future Director's Take and blog pieces this season. The first is our Quick Play Hacked event, and we'll have more updates in the weeks and months to come. I can't wait to share our thoughts on those with all of you. On the Overwatch team, we end our weekly meetings by saying, let's make a great game. It's a recognition that everyone on the team has the ability to influence our game and make it better. We've always worked to incorporate feedback from all of you into the development of the game, so it's fitting that in light of all the changes we've been making to our game, based off of all the feedback we hear, that we start including all of you in our team's pledge. Thanks for reading. Let's make a great game. That's kind of a sweet way to end that. I like this one. This is a pretty good one. I like this one a lot. One of the foremost concerns I've had about ranked, or since they've announced it, the whole top 500 thing, they addressed it. Talked about there'll be changes at mid-season, which is fine. I think that there's probably going to need to be more adjustments anyways. Like, it's hard to know how a system like this that is so big and so core to the game will work before it's released. So I'd rather them just release it and then fix it and like make adjustments than like try to make it perfect, you know? Like, and then like what happens if we end up having to wait another season? Like, that would be terrible. So it sounds good. Sounds good. Looking forward to seeing more of it. Good blog. Good blog. Excited to see you next week.